So before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So let's get into it. Alright, so the 2022 NFL season is over for the Bears, and we are now moving on to the official stage of the offseason, and the Bears have a lot to look forward to, and a lot they have to do to be able to improve the state of the team. So General Manager Ryan Poles needs to get on it, and he's on the clock right now, and there's a lot of things to fix, but I'm pretty confident that he'll be able to do it. But in this video, I just want to wrap up, the season, discuss some things that happened this season, and going into next season, what the Bears should be able to do to be able to fix this team. And without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, guys? KT here, back at it with another video. Today, we're doing the Bears. Yes, the Bears season is over as the playoffs are just around the corner. The Bears went a disappointing 3-14 on the season. About what we expected from a rebuilding team, and it really showed that this year the team was in fluctuation, as we had a lot of moves during and before the season that really changed the outcome of this team. Obviously the big moves with Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn, moving mid-season. Obviously the big move before the season and trading Khalil Mack and letting go of Allen Robinson. So we knew this team was going to be and plus bringing in a whole new coaching staff and a whole new front office. We knew this team was going to be a work in progress, but I'm very confident the Bears will be able to do that. So in this little quick little season recap I'm going to do, I'm going to try to mix in some things that they can fix, and mix in some of the stats from this year. So I'm just going to start with the number one thing that the Bears need to do to be able to improve this team is you got to get Justin Fields some help on offense, and that's pretty much obvious at this point. Justin Fields, what can we say about him? He had a pretty good year. He definitely exceeded expectations this year, and he definitely took that next step to being a franchise quarterback that we all know he can be. This year was just about development for him, and as he did not have a lot around him, it was a rough start to the season for him. But it seemed like after week 5, week 6, the Bears started to change the offense around Justin Fields, and that's when he really took off. But it still shows that the Bears, need a lot of help. Of course, passing the ball is where they need a lot of help at. They were the worst team in passing the ball. Justin Fields had 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and passed for over 2,000 yards with a 60% completion percentage. Not great, but what do you expect with the weapons he had on this team? You combine that with the 55 sacks on the year and a 14% sack rate. I mean, you're going to get the stats. That's what the stats are going to look like for him passing the ball. We need to get Justin Fields some help. We have the number 1 overall pick. Maybe I've heard a lot of discussion that D-Hop might be available. He needs a number 1 receiver and the offensive line. That's the main thing he needs. He needs somebody that can get open, actually catch the ball for once. That guy that can alleviate some pressure on that offense, because outside of Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, they really don't have any real weapons on that receiving core, and they're going to be big going into next year. Of course, you still have Cole Kmet, who was our leading receiver this year, but I feel like your tight end shouldn't have to be your leading receiver if you have some really good receivers. So the Bears have all the pieces in place. Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, and Cole Kmet are all posed to take big leaps in 2023. But they still need that one guy. So what I'm thinking is the Bears can trade that number 1 overall pick to the Cardinals for D-Hop, their pick, and a couple throw-in players and a couple throw-in picks just to get Justin Fields that help he needs. DeAndre Hopkins is only 30, and he would definitely be a big help for a quarterback that definitely needs some help, especially in passing the ball. Maybe once he actually gets a receiver that he can throw to, that can consistently get open and catch those tough passes, maybe you'll start to see those numbers bump up. But obviously for the season, 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and over 2,000 yards passing is not a bad thing for Justin Fields. Number 2, I'm going to say, build off that great rushing game that you had this year. There weren't a lot of pros going into the season about the Bears offense. They were starting a new scheme. You know, their quarterback is only in his second year, and he definitely has some flaws passing the ball. However, the Bears' rushing game has definitely and has always been their staple, and it proved true again this year. The Bears had the #1 rushing attack in the league, and you know, David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, and Justin Fields obviously are like the three-headed hydra in rushing the ball. When your quarterback's rushing for over 1,000 yards, and came within 62 yards of breaking the NFL record, you got and then your two running backs are averaging 4 or 5 yards per carry, with David Montgomery having 800 yards on the year and 5 touchdowns, and then Khalil Herbert taking that big step and having 700 yards on the year and averaging 5 yards per carry. It's no wonder that the Bears rushing game has definitely taken a big step forward, and they have a nice young talent on that rushing game. Even though David Montgomery is a free agent, I wouldn't be surprised if they re-sign him, because he just does a lot of things that Khalil Herbert doesn't do, and those two backs definitely offset each other pretty well, and it showed this season. You had the three-headed trio of Fields, Montgomery, and Herbert mixed in with that QB option. And honestly, the Bears' offensive line in terms of run blocking was one of the best of the league too. So, the Bears have a rushing attack they can build off of. If they can get Justin Fields, like I said in the first point, if they can get Justin Fields a #1 receiver and get him some offensive line help, this offense has a lot of pros going into next season, and a lot of things they can be good at, and that they can get better at going into next season. But as it stands now, the Bears have the best rushing attack in the league, and if they continue to build off that success they had this year and get a few more pieces and weapons around them, I'd be looking forward. The rushing attack's going to be there next year. I'd be looking forward to this Bears offense being really, really good next year. Number 3, as far as defense, you're going to have to get a defensive line. You're going to have to build a pass rush. The Bears really struggled, creating pressure on the quarterback. It showed all season. When your leading sack guy on the team is a safety in Jaquan Brisker, you have a problem up front to where you can't get much pressure with the guys you're putting out there. Pretty disappointing seasons for guys like Travis Gibson, and guys that we thought were going to take the Al-Quadin Muhammad, guys that we thought were going to take that next big step. Dominique Robinson was a rookie, and he only had 1.5 sacks. So it showed that the Bears could barely generate pressure, and they struggled stopping the run, and that's because their offensive line is just way too small for most teams in the NFL. And they were able to get pushed around pretty easily, and most times opposing teams would just single block, and they knew the Bears couldn't beat their one-on-one assignments, and you get games where you might not even have a sack. So it definitely reared its ugly head this season, that the Bears, the loss of Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn definitely hurt that pass rush, along with Akeem Hicks hurt that run stuffing. So the Bears are gonna have to find a way to build another pass rush team up. There are some guys out there. You got Deron Payne from Washington. You got guys coming out the draft, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, guys that you can trade for, and DeForest Buckner. And there's always good pass rushers out there. It's just a matter on what the Bears, decide to do, because they now hold all the leverage going into this year's draft. So we'll see what they need to do to be able to fix that defensive line. And it's sticking on terms with defense. I really do think the 3 best players on our defense, without question, are Jack Sanborn, Jaquan Brisker, and Kyler Gordon, along with Eddie Jackson in that secondary. But those 3 guys, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon, and Jack Sanborn, are building blocks to that defense. They have a good secondary. They don't need to change anything in the secondary. They need one or two more linebackers to go next to Sanborn, and they definitely need a defensive line. Maybe one more corner if Kendall Vildor isn't coming back after this year. I think he is a free agent, so we'll see what they do with that. But the Bears defense, it didn't disappoint. It was definitely what we expected going into the season. Especially after we lost Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn, we definitely knew that defense was going to take a big hit. But you know, it's disappointing to look at your defensive line and know that your leading guy on your defensive line was Travis Gibson, and he only had 3 sacks. And your leading guy on your team for sacks was a safety. So, you know, the Bears have a lot of fix with that front 4. And one more linebacker wouldn't hurt. 1 or 2 more linebackers wouldn't hurt. While Nicholas Morrow did fill in pretty well, you know, for Roquan Smith and all that. I don't know if he can be your full-time starter. So they're going to need another linebacker. But that secondary with Kyler Gordon, if he continues to grow and get better in coverage, as he did have the team leading 3 interceptions, and you know, Jaquan Brisker, he gets better, and not to mention with Jalen Johnson out there and Eddie Jackson out there, the Bears have a stacked secondary if these guys develop the way we think they're going to. Jack Sanborn looks to be a promising young linebacker, so they do have some pieces. You know, maybe if you add Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, maybe that defense takes a big leap. But definitely a priority going into the offseason is to get that defensive line straightened up. You know, a little side note before I end the video. My thing is, you're going to have to get a lot of offensive line help, as the offensive line you had this year just didn't help Justin Fields at all. A league leading 55 sacks is not going to cut it in the NFL. That's a quick way to get your quarterback hurt and stunt his growth. But another thing I would like to touch on real quickly is the Bears control the draft with the #1 overall pick. And you know, there's a lot of things they can do with this pick. They can stay where they're at. You know, they can entice teams to trade up. They can trade down. You know, if they continue to, they can trade down with the Texans, and then they can trade down again. And then even if they're really confident, they can trade down again. You know, the Bears control so many aspects of this year's draft just because they have the #1 overall pick. Teams know they're not going to pick a quarterback. At least I think they know they're not going to pick a quarterback. So that does, you know, discredit the pick a little bit. That does bring its value down, but you still control the draft, especially if there's a team out there that's hungry for a franchise quarterback, with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young coming out this year. If there's a team that's desperate enough to get one of those quarterbacks, they're going to trade up with you, and you're going to be able to get assets for that pick. So for Ryan Poles, I mean, I think the best key that you can do on this list is that you need to get maximum value for that #1 overall pick. If you can't trade down, you take the best player available. You might have to, if no team is willing to trade up, you might have to take Will Anderson #1. Who's to say they take Will Anderson #1 or Jalen Carter #1 and they don't trade that pick? But the main thing is you want to get maximum value for that pick. Because if you do, you have the most salary cap in the league, you have a young franchise quarterback, and you have the best rushing attack in the league. If you're able to do that and get maximum value for that pick, you'll be able to put a very good supporting cast around Justin Fields. You'll be able to fix that offensive line. You'll be able to get that #1 wide receiver, and you'll be able to fix that defense as well, especially that defensive line. You'll basically be able to fix most of your problems going into next season. Not all, most. And, you know, that's what's really exciting with the Bears offseason coming up. So, you know, it's definitely, it was a rebuilding season. It was definitely a successful rebuilding season as we saw Justin Fields grow. You know, we saw a lot of players step into different roles. We saw a lot of young players, you know, get started with their young careers and look like they're about to have promising young careers. So, you know, it's definitely an exciting time to be a Bears fan, and it's definitely, you know, the Bears are probably in the best situation in the NFL. It just depends on if the front office plays their cards right. They'll be able to build this team into a playoff team like that going into next year. So we'll see what happens during this offseason. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section on what the Bears should do this offseason. Leave your opinion. You know, what should they do with the #1 overall pick? You know, what should they do with some of the free agents we got coming up, and Darnell Mooney and, you know, David Montgomery. You know, leave your opinions in the comment section as I will be reading them. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. It helps the channel grow. Hit that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these Bears videos. As always, follow me on social media, as I will be following Bears off-season news during the off-season, of course. And yeah, bear down. I'm out. Peace.